passion, focus, discipline. This is the Zero Excuses Podcast. Each and every week, we talk to high-performing, inspirational athletes, entrepreneurs, and leaders. We ask powerful questions to extract their tools, strategies, and life lessons for you to crush your excuses, to break out of your comfort zone, and accomplish your ambitious dreams and goals. Here's your host, Kenyon HERE.
All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm really excited to bring you today's episode. We have Ryan Wilson from the Living Lighthouse Podcast here to share his story and share his message with us today. And I really think it's an important message because Ryan is he's in his mid-20s, few years younger than I am. But I kind of wish that I had his attitude and his perspective back when I was his age, not to make myself sound like an old man, but he's really realized the importance of living life intentionally. And I know that's a cliche term, but his peer group, they tend to be have their face buried in their phones, playing video games, and that's kind of what he is all about. Is not necessarily completely giving up those things, but still being able to enjoy those things, yet still have a purpose in life. And he's here to share, like I said, his story and his message and why it's important that, we not fall into the trap of the societal norms that we tend to fall into. Anyways, before we get into the conversation with Ryan, just to have a couple quick reminders for you guys. First, if you haven't already done so, would appreciate it if you go over to iTunes and subscribe, leave us a rating and review, and also share this show with anybody who may resonate with the messages and the strategies and the tools and the tactics that we share here on the show. And the second reminder is if you want to go deeper with any of these topics or want to discuss some customized tools and strategies that you need to implement to reach your goals and get the results that you want in your life, have a couple ways for you to do that. First is joining our free closed Facebook group at kenyonhere.com/group. It'll take you right to the Zero Excuses Facebook group, and you can engage with close to 500 members there who are grouping together for accountability, who are sharing their tools and discussing the very topics that we talk about here on the show. And if you want to connect with me one-on-one, I'm offering a free 15 to 30 minute phone call for you to connect with me, whether you simply want to get to know me a little bit better or want to go deeper on a particular topic or want to discuss a particular barrier that you might be having to reaching your goals and reaching your results. Happy to talk about really anything that you want to talk about. Talk about the weather, talk about your favorite sports teams, whatever. I just have a big goal this year to connect with as many of my audience members as possible and just get to know them better. And I always love connecting with people and I love helping people out. Anyways, if you want to do that, you can do so at kenyonhere.com/call, CALL. Take you right to my calendar and you can book that call. Super simple, super easy. All right, guys, enough of all that. Let's get into today's topic with Ryan Wilson. Ryan Wilson, thanks for taking time out of your schedule to talk with us here on the Zero Excuses Podcast. Excited to chat with you. I know this has been a bit of a work in progress to get this interview lined up and make it happen. So glad to finally connect.
Yeah, Ken, thanks for having me on, man. Been connected with you for a while now, and so it's good to finally get on the show.
Awesome, man. So Ryan is the host and founder of the Living Lighthouse Podcast, and I'm really stoked to talk to you because, like I mentioned pre-show, that I wish I had your perspective. You're a little bit younger than I am. I wish I had your perspective, at that stage that you're currently at in my life. And why don't you give yourself a quick introduction and tell us why you're so passionate about your podcast?
Yeah, so I'm 25, and right in the middle of my 20s, and I've kind of gone through a very your typical college experience. Dabbled with some corporate internships, jobs, and stuff like that. Didn't really get any fulfillment out of it. And I know there are a lot of guys who are kind of on that same path who aren't too satisfied either. And so it's kind of out of necessity but I've got my own story behind it. Something I'm really passionate about. I want to, build this podcast, build this brand for guys in their 20s who just kind of want more out of life, want to rise above the status quo, all the mediocrity that's going on. I know the need is certainly there, and so I'm excited to get this thing off the ground.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I can totally relate to what you just described there. I spent my 20s on active duty in the Navy, and left active duty and when I was 28 and dove into the college scene and started walking that path of what society tells us we ought to be doing with our lives, like going to school, amassing all this college debt, buying the house with the mortgage, getting married, kind of checking all those boxes. Not that I'm dissatisfied with my marriage by any means, but we check all these boxes thinking that, okay, these are all the things a responsible adult should be doing, and we should be happy with this. And I definitely found myself, less than satisfied, like you described. So I think it's really important work that you're doing. It's important message that you are conveying to your peers, and even some people who might be listening to this, who might be a little bit older, might have walked that path and are starting to realize that there's more to life than all of these things, and that we should be, living our lives the way we decide, not what society should. So I guess what was the biggest, was there an aha moment that you found yourself going through, or was it, something that you gradually came to the conclusion like, hey, I'm not living life on my terms?
Yeah. So about 3 years ago, I went to what's now known as the Menfluential Conference, which I just got back from this past weekend. It's always an amazing conference every single year. And getting to meet guys there, like Ryan Mickler, guys of that caliber. When I was 22, that was just a game changer. And at the time, I was in the middle of an internship with, and just in the corporate world, and was just not getting any satisfaction out of it, and was, feeling down, feeling depressed, kind of in a rut. Didn't really know what direction I wanted to go with my life. I knew that wasn't the direction I wanted to go with the corporate world. But getting to meet guys of that caliber at that age and seeing what they're doing with entrepreneurship and content creation, podcasting, things like that, really inspired me to kind of make this turn in my career, in my life. And now here we are trying to get this thing going.
Awesome. So I guess what is the, I think we talked about, video game addictions and some other things that, people who are, young like you tend to, waste their time on. I know I wasted plenty of time playing video games in my 20s, and not that there's anything particularly wrong with that. It just, we find ourselves falling into that trap to maybe escape reality, to, we just don't have anything better to do. Why don't you start diving into that a little bit, because that's another important thing. And I see tons of people, even my age, getting sucked into that trap.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when I came back from that internship and that whole experience and got back to school, I still had about a year and a half of school left. I was in a pretty bad place at that point. I still wanted to finish off that year and a half of school, even though I had no reason to be there. And so I would cope with that, that stress of the studying, the exams, everything like that last year and a half, by playing a lot of video games. And it's an addiction just like anything else is. It was just really, it served as a distraction for me to kind of kill time that past year, that last year and a half. And nowadays I still will play them on the side, but I think I'm playing them in a lot healthier way. I'm not letting them get in the way of my non-negotiables, and I'm not letting them replace the important things in my life. I'm using it alongside those more important things. Cool.
So it sounds like you started to implement some specific strategies and tools once you kind of realized that you weren't going down the path that you were meant to walk, for lack of a better description. What were kind of those initial steps once you met these influencers and whatnot? What were the first steps that you took to start to implement the changes that you felt you needed to make?
Yeah, I had to become more intentional, very much more intentional with who I surrounded myself with. And at the time, being in college, kind of tough to find people who kind of resonated with me at my age. And so I got involved with communities like the ones I've talked about before, just with guys who were, perhaps a little bit older than me. Didn't really resonate with them in that way, but they had that mindset of growth and the abundance mindset. And, you don't really see that much in younger guys. Kind of the big reason why I'm starting this journey here. Had to be very intentional in who I surrounded myself with. That was number one for me.
Yeah. So how are you, what's your method of connecting with folks your age other than just finding things in common? How are you able to convince, what would you say to someone your age? They may want to be, chasing girls, playing video games, going to these social events, drinking. What would you say to them if you were to approach someone who's coming to you for help? How do you, I guess the question is, how do you recommend someone, I'm trying to find the words here. Let me jot down when I'm stumbling here about 5 minutes in so I can, I've got so much going through my brain sometimes.
Yeah. I'm still kind of trying to think of an answer too.
Yeah. I guess how do you convince people your age to drop those fun things and live more intentionally? What's the biggest barrier to getting through to these, your peers?
It's something I'm still trying to figure out myself. I'm not like above anybody in my, community by any means. I'm right in the middle of my 20s as well, like I said, and I'm in the battle with everyone else. I'm trying to figure that out on my own, but, now I'm stumbling too.
Yeah.
It's a tough question. I'd say, oh man.
Well, let's shift gears here. And so what was I'm trying to remember what was before that. We're talking about surrounding yourself with the right people. What were some of the other steps that you took beyond that? What were some of the, practical day-to-day things that you started to implement? Were they, biggest example I can think of is daily planning or things like that.
Big one for me, now that you mentioned daily planning, it's kind of in that realm, is a morning routine. That's the absolute best way to start out your day. And if you start out your day well, you will, I've literally noticed this both today and yesterday. Yesterday, got up in the morning, got all the stuff done, and my day went really well. Today, kind of struggled a bit to get out of bed, not going to lie. I still, struggle with that myself. But day got off to a really slow start, and that kind of carries through the rest of your day. Mm-hmm. So that's a big one that I've tried to implement, and that's even when you asked earlier what advice someone I would have for someone to someone kind of around my age, do something like that. Just get a morning routine. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. Just get up, drink some water, do 20 push-ups, brush your teeth, make your bed. Very simple steps that that build momentum for the rest of the day. Yeah,
it comes back to the intentionality and not just living life randomly. So if you were to rewind the clock a little bit, how would you approach your your post high school career a little different? I mean, most of us, I fell into this trap too, and not that I regret it or anything, but I felt I needed to go to, get my degree, go to college. Would you do anything different these days, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, it's tough, man, because the more I think about it, the more I know that I wouldn't be where I am now, and I wouldn't understand what, the school system and everything like that if I hadn't gone through it myself. So mm-hmm. I can't really say I would change anything. It's become part of my story, and I'm embracing that.
Yeah, I definitely kind of feel that way too, but I think I think I would do things a little bit different order. Maybe try and go to school before I join the military. But you know what?
Yeah, maybe gone the community college route or something like that to make things a bit cheaper.
Yeah. I definitely did that while I was in. Knocked out a course here and there, but I think I would have concentrated a little bit more, a little bit sooner than kind of let things play out. But,
it's crazy, man, because I spent 5 years in college, and I can't help but wonder if I had spent that time starting a business instead. Where would I be right now?
Oh yeah, because that definitely gave me additional clarity on what I did not want to do. And like you said, I was in the same boat of I started those corporate jobs and they had some satisfaction, but the biggest thing that I found was losing control over my time. And it seems like we get sold on the idea that we should be putting in our 40 plus hours a week, 8 hours a day, and now I'm finding that there's a little bit different ways for you to earn a living, and it's not trading your time for money. You can trade your money for time and increase your value along the way. Are you finding that as well?
Yeah, I very much can resonate with that. Yeah, definitely. So I very much felt like I was just selling my time for money. And I realized that if I am going to work 80, 90 hours a week like I did in the corporate world, I better do it for something that I enjoy and not something that I hate. So that mindset shift, that shift changed a lot for me. So now I'm spending a lot of time working on the business. I'm working a retail job on the side to pay the bills. It's a job that I don't have to take any work home with me. I work like 30 hours a week. So a lot better position now than before. I'm getting paid a lot less, but I'm thinking more for 10 years from now me than I am for tomorrow me. So
yeah, we go after that shiny object right after we graduate from school. We want that high paying job that we spend 4 years drooling over. Like we're earning these fancy degrees from these fancy schools, and we're supposed to be graduating and landing these top notch jobs, but we don't think about the fact that we might be spending that 80, 90 hours a week at that job, and it goes back to the societal norms that I mentioned before, that we're told that we should be spending X amount of time. We're supposed to put our time in to earn that dollar. And I guess is this the only thing that you're doing on the podcast? Do you have any other income streams that you're working on other than the podcast?
I'm working on staying more active on social media. I'm wanting that to be a thing, build a Facebook group, stuff like that. I'm actually taking Ryan Mickler's Tribe Builder course right now. And that's giving me some insight. I'm also working on some live streaming. I think that's going to be a big thing just for in the future of just the internet and everything like that. Having that live setting, and which is perfect with the video game thing, because I've been doing some streams on Twitch, which is a live streaming platform for video games. So that's definitely very much a part of the business model I want to get going in the future. Not so much right now. I don't think it's the most important thing I could be doing right now, but it's in the back of my mind. I'd like to get more and more active with that and build a community from there.
So are you using video games as a platform to maybe, I know there's a lot of like chat rooms and even chatting going on during some of these video games. Are you using that as a platform to maybe, I guess, talk your quote unquote game about, living life more intentionally and, doing the Living Lighthouse theme that you talk about on your podcast?
That's the goal, man. It's just, not a very big audience over there right now, but if I can focus more on things like the podcast, things that were like, when you release the content, it's out there for anyone to see at any time, as opposed to a live setting where you're only really there if you're there at the right time. Mm-hmm. It's like a long Facebook Live that you can't really see after the fact. That's how I see a Twitch stream.
Yeah, I'm kind of like I said, I'm a little bit older than you, so I'm not familiar with all these. I'm kind of dating myself, but I'm not familiar with these video game platforms because I've all but stopped playing video games since I started my journey. So I'm just curious what that involves, and how can you just spectate on those platforms, or do you have to be involved in the game to I guess reach you?
Oh no, it's pretty much entirely spectators. Like people are watching you play video games. Whether it's for entertainment, like some people are just really good at the game, and so they watch for just the gameplay, and other people watch for the personality of the live streamer, the broadcaster. So it's a really cool platform. I just don't think it's the most important thing for me right now, just because I think I can grow an audience faster, differently, and then bring that over to that live streaming space. So that's kind of a shift that I made recently, trying to focus more on building the tribe.
Yeah,
in a different way.
Yeah, and you bring up something very important that we also, as we start building our businesses or even building our careers, we tend to fall into what seems like a sweet spot, and we just kind of chug along. But we don't have the awareness to realize that we're not utilizing the most current or optimal strategy to get our results that we want. And I definitely fell into that trap last year, just kind of putting my head down and not making strategy adjustments. How did you come to the realization that maybe you weren't employing the right strategy, and what caused you to make that strategy shift?
Right. It's so difficult, man, because we all want to do everything. We all want to we end up spreading ourselves too thin just by accident, because we have all the stuff that's really important to us. That some things are more important than others, and so those highly, highly important things we need to be prioritizing first, even if it means sacrificing something that is important, maybe in the long term, but not so important, not as important as the things that we should be doing. It's an incredibly difficult balance from what I've experienced.
Yeah. So what does that? How exactly do you prioritize those things? How do you break that down and kind of rack and stack everything that you've got going on?
Yeah, I think it's just trial and error. I've been doing the live streaming thing kind of on and off for a while now, and hasn't really gotten where I want it to be. I'm not reaching my message out to enough people, and I know for a fact I could be reaching out, spreading it out to more people through Facebook or Instagram or other or YouTube or other platforms like that. So that's and the podcast as well. That's how I got the podcast started. So yeah, I think just go where the people are, basically, is the strategy that I'm going with. And then maybe when I build a big enough community, I can bring them over to ultimately what I want to do, which is, go in that live setting, be able to talk with people about, the big issues we face in our 20s and, and just in that live setting. I think both are very important, being live for people to watch and interact with in a real set in real time. And then also having things that, like the podcast or a YouTube channel that people can just go and watch or listen to whenever they want.
Awesome. So I guess what's your 30,000 foot view? Like if someone listens to your podcast or one of your live streams, what's the, if you were to put a bow on your mission statement, what would that be? What would what would their overarching objective be from someone listening to you on any of your platforms?
Just to rise above all the mediocrity and rise above the status quo and kind of build that foundation for the next generation of, fathers, husbands, community leaders, all that kind of stuff. That's just kind of how I say it. That's what inspires me to keep going and put that mark on society that desperately needs that kind of influence.
Yes. I mean, how many people have you reached so far? I know you just started the podcast. How has this impacted those, maybe those few folks that you've reached thus far? What life changes have they started to implement?
It hasn't gone too far outside of family, friends, coworkers, and then the small community I've built on Twitch over the past couple years. But I do occasionally get a message from somebody that's, that really inspires me to keep them going. Like one guy stopped drinking soda entirely. I don't know how much I contributed or my message or just I contributed to that, but he just stopped drinking sodas. He's gone, he built a hobby, he does a little hiking, I believe, hiking around different places around where he lives. So he's very much gotten more out of the video game addiction and, has lived life a lot better. And so that's always inspiring to see. Absolutely. Keeps me going too.
Yeah. I mean, if someone's out there listening and you're listening to me and Ryan talk about, the effect that we have on people, and you're thinking to yourself that there's no way I can have this effect. There's always people watching you, even if you're just a casual social media user. There are people that watch you that don't engage with you, that don't necessarily make their presence known to what the content that you are putting out there. Don't let that be a barrier to you shining your light, being a lighthouse like Ryan's doing with his work. You can inspire. You have the power to inspire people, no matter what your background is, no matter what your backstory is, no matter how little or as much as you've struggled in your life. You can make a difference in somebody's life. And we all have the ability to be a lighthouse to other people. And, if you have a story that you're dying to tell, but are hesitant to do it because you don't think anybody will listen, let this one story that Ryan shared with you kind of be an example to you to, have a small dent on the universe and the society that we live in these days. You can help someone. And, I guess my message is don't let, get out of your own head and just start telling your story, start telling people what's working for you, what's not working for you. And we can't have enough people, sharing their knowledge and sharing their experience with each other. And that's how we can just make this whole world a better place. But Ryan, we're starting to run up against time here a little bit. I want to leave a few minutes here at the end to make sure people know how to get in touch with you if they want to, if they maybe have a video game addiction and need a little bit of help. How can they reach out to you? How can they get in touch, or how can they subscribe to the podcast, etc.?
Yeah, check out the Living Lighthouse Podcast. It's on iTunes and Stitcher right now. I'm working on getting that spread out on other platforms as well. And I'm active on Twitter at Living LH. That's another a quick place to reach out to me. And then twitch.tv/Living Lighthouse is where I will go live, hopefully 2-3 times a week. If you happen to catch me there, feel free to hang out and say hi and ask questions and bring your thoughts and everything like that as well.
Awesome. So, where do you see yourself a year from now? What impact would you, if I were to have you back on the show and we do another interview a year from now, what impact would you have made in the past year, I guess?
It's obviously hard to look forward a year from now, but what keeps me kind of going is, I always got to remind myself that there's at least one person that's always depending on me as a leader somewhere. And so that one person, grows to 2 and then 3 and then 10, and then 100 and so on and so on. Yeah. I a year from now, I really want to have my voice developed a lot better than it is now. And just to do that, I just need to keep practicing, talking behind a camera, microphone, just keep doing what I'm doing now, make some pivots along the way and yeah, just
develop your message.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yes,
awesome. Cool. Well, thanks again for taking time out of what I'm sure is a busy schedule for you to talk with us today. And, I'm excited to see your growth, to definitely want to have you on the podcast again to, do a round 2 and see what you've learned, in the short amount of time that we'll be between interviews here. And, again, thanks a lot, man. And I'll definitely put all of these links in the show notes and make sure people know how to get a hold of you. Thanks again, man.
Anytime, man. Thanks for doing what you do as well. It's inspiring stuff to hear.
Awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to the Zero Excuses Podcast. Join the conversation at kenyonhere.com in our Facebook group. And don't forget to rate and subscribe to our show. We'll talk to you next week. And always remember, results, not excuses.